Okay, 3, 2, 1. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle for sync. All right. We are synchronized, I do believe. So, hey everybody, today I'm going to show you using these CIntel raw image scans a little bit about how you can correct film scans, at least those done by the Blackmagic CIntel scanner. There's a couple different methods. Some are more quote-unquote correct than others. Some are more about just feeling out the footage and feeling out the controls and doing it manually. So let's just jump right in here. Most of these, though, do apply to all film scans from almost all scanners, regardless of if it's CIntel or some other scanner source. Excuse me. So to begin with, let's actually get our resolution set up correctly, because we'll be converting these to a 4:3 resolution. So that would be 4096 by 3072. 4096 by 3072. Let's see if that's correct. That is correct. Perfect. Okay, sweet. So to begin with, I'll be showing you how to just use lift, gamma, and gain to get your images somewhat usable, make some corrections, do some basic shot matching. I have it laid out here where the time of day is shifting relative to, you know, the helicopter flight. This is helicopter footage. Let me make sure there's nothing on timeline, nothing on group pre, nothing on group post. Okay, we're good. And, you know, it's like early sunset, later in sunset, you know, twilight, and then the actual, like, blue hour, tail into twilight. So to begin with, we're going to set up our frames. Make it so that the footage is no longer showing the top and bottom of the next frame and no longer showing the edge of our actual sprocket holes. So I'm just gonna zoom in here, and then we're gonna just pan over slightly so we can kind of align our corners. Let's tilt it so that the corners feel like we're getting about the same amount on all sides. Then we're just gonna punch in until we lose our corners. Tilt down, see if we can lose the top corners. Okay, just a little bit, so let's punch in slightly more. And then let's pan to the right slightly. Boom. Boom, boom. There we go. So now we have our full screen 4:3 image. I'm just gonna do a power grade from that, quickly apply it, and it will, you know, grab a still and then apply it, and it will apply our cropping to all these clips. There's probably a faster way to do this. I'm still new to the whole film scanning side of things, so if there's any automated processes to align that, let me know. But from what I have seen, it does not appear to be an automated processes for it. You just have to manually kind of align it while trying to maintain as much resolution as possible. Okay, so the basic way we're going to do this is just with lift, gamma, gain, offset, contrast, and pivot. This is our first step. I have discovered that my favorite way to deal with this is to get this roughly in the center for our luminance. To make sure all these are roughly centered with offset, excuse me. Roughly centered in exposure. And then I will make another node after. I'm not going to label these, but you should label an actual project so you don't get lost. I'm just being lazy for demonstration purposes because I'm going to be showing you quite a few different ways of doing this. But simple thing is we then come in and we set our contrast. Let's do about 1.5 roughly. We can set our pivot to get our tonality where we want it. Skies are a little bit off, but that's fine. I'm going to come here and I'm going to take, I'm using my mouse so you can see this. I'm going to take some of the green out of the image. I'm going to pull some of the blue out as well so that we push some of the red. So we kind of emphasize that nice sunset feel. Oh, wait, we start a second roll. Or what I mean by second roll is we are at speed a second time on the camera. So we are actually here with a different exposure, same reel, different exposure. So I'm just going to adjust this to match that a bit better. Easiest way to do this is grab that still there. Let's get here. We will throw these up next to each other. And just kind of, ta-da. We'll go back here. This one we need to actually push a bit of blue back into it. Like that. Cool. So this is mostly contrast, pivot, offset. I'll show you how to do lift, gamma, gain by themselves after. Fairly straightforward. So I can actually use a little bit more red in this, a little bit blue and green out of it to kind of match these better. I could use printer lights, but I'm doing this by hand just so you can see my clicks on the screen. But that should roughly give you like an idea. I'm going to take these adjustments. I'm just going to pull this over here, but I am going to reset my offset and then briefly turn this off so that I can center here, pop this back on. And then we're going to set our pivot like so. This is later in the day, so let's actually just take our wheel here and we're just going to push, 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 push. Because we don't want it to feel like it's the same time of day necessarily, but we do want it to feel like it's continuous. And we will take this, let's watch it all the way through. For the most part, it's okay. Push through to here. Grab this, put there. Okay, this is much later in the day. Oops, did not mean to grab green. Let's center it. Boom, like that. Let's get this here so that we can throw them up side by side. And looking on my grading monitor, I know that I need to pivot a little bit, and then let's pull the contrast down a little bit as well so that we can kind of match our contrast ratio a little bit better. And then we will pull back, kind of get like that, roughly. And then we get here to completely at night, which, once again, let's reset and then push to like roughly center. Get our contrast here. Let's grab reference. Throw the two up side by side so that we have our reference here. So we can push this a little bit. So this, and we have this. And then for our overall on our post clip here, I'm going to do a fun little thing. I'm going to push like really warm here up front to kind of emphasize that sunset feel. And then going to keyframe this correct. Oh yeah, you can't keyframe on. It has to be on the timeline level, which is silly, but let's do this on the timeline level. So keyframe this here. And then as we get all the way to the tail end of this one here, I'm going to do the opposite. It's going to get nice and cool. So we have a nice, just gradual transition of day throughout the course of this. For the sake of the video. Now, granted, you don't have to do the transition thing with your film scans. I just like the idea of mimicking the slow change of day, the sunset fall to night, all of that through that timeline level adjustment. Let's bring out a little bit of definition here. So I'm just going to pop this sharpness slightly. I'm going to play with it till I get it by eye where it looks like everything's sharp and we're not over sharpening. Problem with that though is it brings the noise in. So we're going to go to pre-clip and we're going to use the automatic dirt removal. We're going to set our threshold to 0 temporarily. We're going to show our repair mask, and then we're going to check our edge ignore. And our motion thresholds. Looks like that's fine. Okay. With full screen, with cleans it up relatively nicely. Oop. The only thing I don't like about it is that when you get to the transitionary point between takes, you know, it does get kind of funky because it's essentially blending frames. But it's less of an issue if we just do one frame, but then we lose a bit of the noise reduction. It's still doing a decent amount of noise reduction though. Let's keep it 2 frames though for now. And just accept the fact that like that portion is going to be a little bit on the funky side. And I mean, if we were using this as a finished piece, you wouldn't even show that anyway. So we'll just cut here. And then we will, once we get up to speed, cut so that we're just back at speed. And we'll only really focus on maintaining the portions of the footage that's at speed. All right, so we're at speed the whole way through. Cool. So this is one way of doing it. It's quick, rough, dirty, easy, simple, but not a lot of like direct control. Next way I'm going to show you of doing it is let's keep our frame sizes, shall we? Next way I'm going to show you doing it is just lift gamma gain. Obviously we set our lift for black point, our gain for white point. We're clipping here and my Luma is not showing it, so we're going to go to RGB. And we will use RGB because it is going to show our clip point. I prefer seeing things though as monochrome, so we'll just do like that. Bring our gamma down. I'm not too worried about like speculars going out. We'll clean those up at the end. Something roughly like that. Next node, we will balance. And this is assuming, because I'm assuming during the scan, like black balancing was done to this footage. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more to clean up than just this. But if I cut this off and we just look at our parade, like they're roughly, you know, it's roughly set up. I mean, we could balance it a bit more. Something like that. So we could balance it a bit more. Make it more more neutralized. More natural looking. You know, if we wanted to like use our scopes and like really neutralize it and naturalize it, like we could do it that way. And that's probably like as close to neutral as we can get with it. We could also, you know, keep it a little bit fictional. Keep the fiction going. And kind of push that warmth on the top end. And then pull some of that warmth from the midtones. Push on the top end. Pull a little bit from the midtones, and then pull a little bit from the bottom. And then really push that warmth. And then let's bring it back in line. Get something a bit more exaggerated and less natural neutral. But this is just, you know, lining things up roughly with the top and the bottom being, you know, mostly aligned, not perfectly aligned, but mostly aligned, and then using the midtones to get the tinting that I want so that it feels natural, like sunset. You know, we could apply this same to here, then we'll go to this one and we'll just pick our lift, put our gain higher, compare the two so that we can see roughly about like that. We want to get the bottom end put back, and then we want the top end to also be put back, and then we'll push midtones so that they kind of align a bit more. Well, that's not even the version I'm using. I'm using this version, so let's delete the more pink version. Compare these two. Yeah, now they pretty much roughly match. And once again, I said that I'll clean up the specular. We'll get to that later. Same thing, I'm just going to apply this and then set that to there. Set that to like there, about-ish. Honestly, I should just be doing this on one node. overcomplicating it by doing it on 2 nodes, but I liked the feeling of it being non-destructive. Just a normalized node, almost like a one light pass in a way. We're ending up with very different looks than we did the first time, which I think is, great. I love how different processes and thought patterns can produce different looks. There comes a certain point too where I'm not relying on the scopes to match it so much as I am matching it by eye now, because the lighting scenarios are completely different. So to actually match on scopes, they would look completely different. And then once again, we'll come in and we'll pop our sharpness. We'll go in at the bottom end and we'll get noise reduction done. But because the footage is a little bit different this time, we can just try our default settings and see how they work. No. No, okay, let's do actual noise reduction then. So we'll come over here to our noise reduction tab. We will set it to 2 frames. And we'll just pull until we're at like around 15 on both our chroma and luma. Okay, not quite enough. Let's try 3 frames. 5 frames is too many. Let's just do 3 frames. And they're doing 2 frames. Let's just do 2 frames. Let's do 20%. 50%. Yeah, 50% actually worked pretty good at 2 frames. I would have thought it too aggressive, but no, it actually worked out fine. Here's no noise reduction, which may be preferable depending on like your taste. But then here's with noise reduction. And then alternatively, we have a few color managed options for dealing with our CIntel scans. Some are considered more proper than others. According to Blackmagic, the ideal way to do this is you go in and you pick your LUTs, you do lookup table. We'll do CIntel print to linear because this is a positive. Another node, another LUT. We'll then go to VFX.io and we will do linear to Rec 709. And then we will work post conversion on that. And kind of do something similar to what we had done before. So let me just apply this node chain to everything. So we'll work kind of similarly to how we did before, using lift gamma gain. We will come in and balance things out. It's just instead of also pulling the log image and trying to linearize it, it's already mostly linearized for us. Mostly. And as you can see, there's a little bit difference in density compared to what we were getting when we manually did it. It's like a softer toe to the low end, which is more technically correct for display. Dealing with speculars, my bad. So for dealing with speculars, I'd go here to the output, color output. I would do a loom versus sat, grab this, just pull it to about 0.5, so we have a nice desat there so that it becomes legal, and then one node after, just to highlight soft to like slightly punch things in, so they're roughly around like 95 at the actual true peak. And if you really want to like get accurate with that, you can just come in and set that there, and then find your high soft and your high, so that for a fact nothing can go beyond that point. But that's only if you are delivering something that needs broadcast safe. Not everything necessarily does. Good in practice to try to broadcast safe things as much as possible, but it's not always a requirement. So like in this case, due to the way that the conversion has happened, the only way to really get the kind of punch and brightness to match is to blow that sky out quite a bit. So let's just bring that back, which I might actually even do it because it's only that one clip. Let's do it on the clip level. We'll just go here with another node and we will clean that up and just soft clip until we get our highlights brought back. And then just so that we can make sure that we stay legal in case for some reason we're getting some funkiness to it. Desat it to about 0.5. I'm going a little bit below 0.5, but like we could desat it all the way if we want. But it's just to make sure the highlight values don't quite go out of gamut on that top end. And I mean, I'm not even really checking my vector scope because currently I'm in the beta for 19, and as you can see, the vector scope has issues in the beta for 19, at least on M-chip Max. So, and I mean, we could come here and do the same, like kind of just clean those highlights up and then desat. It's more of an issue whenever you're using the LUT workflow than when you're manually doing it. I feel like manually controlling the linearization process allows you to maintain your own peaks and valleys a bit easier. All right. I'm mainly trying to do is balance the bottom end. And then I'll figure out what to do with the top end. And then I'll push midtones. Try to get stuff where it needs to be. Feels, because the lighting scenario is different, it feels continuous even though it's not actually continuous, and it's mainly because the buildings on the right side I'm looking at, the buildings on the right feel continuous between these two shots, so it's ballpark enough, I think. We could keep going, but that should roughly give you the idea. Then the other way to do it, this is the not entirely correct way, but still kind of works way. Come on. Oh, it's post clip, that's why. The other way that kind of works, color managed, but is like the incorrect way, would be either through YRGB or through ACES. So let's just start with ACES and I'll walk you through it. I'm going in and I'm picking ACES input transform, color space conversion, and then I'm using ADX10 on all of these, which is rough printing density for ASIS. I'll just use offset and kind of get stuff about where we want it with offset. Then if we end up in a situation like I think we are, where the contrast is too different, then we'll just use contrast and pivot to match. So like here, I want this like that, but I also want the sky back. So let's just contrast, remove a little bit of contrast. Hold on 1 second, I have a phone call. Sorry about that personal conversation. While I was on the phone, I was just kind of balancing everything and making it so the shots kind of flow and match and feel similar. This is the ASIS workflow with it, which I kind of like. It's nice, it's fast. Then we got our DaVinci YRGB. If you go in and you do custom, set the timeline space to CCT, everything should still align for the most part. We got to come in and we set our input color space by right-clicking. We go to Cineon Film Log. And that should, is it not? Input color space. That should about do it. There's some funkiness going on. Everything's oversaturated. Why are we getting... Oh, because .sin I think has XYZ color. So let's just project. Well, I mean, if we're working exclusively with film scans, we can set the timeline color space, separate color space and gamma. We'll just do input color space Rec 709, input gamma Cineon film log. And that should roughly no, not at all. Clearly, there's different math going on with DaVinci YRGB compared to ACES. So in theory, it should work, but in practice, it doesn't. That's fine. We can roll our own color management with it. So what I'll do is I'll just go back to regular DaVinci YRGB. And pre-clip, I'll come in and I'll do post noise reduction. We'll do, actually, let's just do the ACES transform so we can use ADX since we are balanced for ADX. I'll do ADX 10 to ACES CCT. Let's cut on our reference gamma compress. Then we'll go post clip, but pre-sharpen, and then we'll do the color space transform so we get that DaVinci color science output. Because a lot of people prefer the DaVinci output color science since it's more, it's a softer, more natural, neutral look from what I have been told. I have no opinion. I like the crunchiness, the chunkiness of ACES a bit, but you know, this is what that would look like. And I get it. You know, you retain a softer toe and a softer shoulder to your exposure than with ACES, which is a bit chunkier, a bit punchier. To me, ACES feels kind of print-ish, film print-ish. And from what I understand, after talking with a couple people who were there as color scientists and engineers in the early days of ACES and version 1.0, it did have a film print LUT as part of its conversion process. It was built into the conversion and management tools. I don't know if there's still a LUT involved or if it's just kind of chunky boy choices with it. But to give you an example of you know what I mean, though, we can actually just take our the film look creator built into Resolve. No effects. Let's just get the color adjustments. And you kind of get a similar effect with this where you can see like that crunch. I mean, it's also affecting white balance and saturation. But you can kind of see like that crunchiness to it. That's kind of what ACES does. I can just show like a difference. We'll just use the ACES. ACES transform. Reference gamma. CCT. CCT out to 709. Boom. So we will compare the two. They're very similar. They're very, very similar. There's just a slight punchiness in contrast to ACES that is not in DaVinci YRGB or DaVinci's CST. What's also crazy about the CST is there's other like non-standard 709 conversions that you can go to, which normally you would only get through like DeBayer processes in cameras. I'm not going to recommend it for like film scans, but it's wacky to me that you can just go like, yeah, Blackmagic Design Video, or like Video Gen 5, or like Extended Video Gen 5, or like you can do Rad Gamma. It's crazy and cool, the stuff you can do with it. The one thing that I'm confused by, and I wish people someone smarter than me could explain this, because ever since they updated the CST, it's confused the heck out of me. And that is that and it may just be due to like the nature of linearizing and trying to get like a linear display signal. But this is scene referred 709, Rec 709 scene referred. Why is it display referred 2.4 and scene referred are the exact same gamma unless I remove the EOTF or the OOTF? Because I remember earlier versions of Resolve, this is just what 709 2.4 was, and then I'd have to do like a trim to correct for that. And now 709 and gamma 2.4 are the exact same gamma. But 2.4, which used to be also, lifted in comparison, is now darker. But then sRGB, if you remove it, is actually lifted a little bit less than 2.2, where before I vaguely remember them being almost identical in TOW and gamma. Just some changes to the CST. From what I understand, it's more accurate now. It's more in line with what other color management pipelines are doing. It's definitely more in line with what ASUS is doing, just less aggressive. God, I remember whenever DaVinci's color management platform was called DaVinci ASUS, and they got in trouble for that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I've always been curious about why the change, like what happened with that change. If I do the inverse OOTF, I keep wanting to call it EOTF. It's OOTF. Inverse OOTF. Is that going to be the same as if I did 2.4? No, it's not the same. So what are we inverting to then? Because it's not inverting to our ASUS CCT. So what is it inverting to? Conversely, forward OOTF, like what is that going forward to? Is that the same as linear? Let's find out. I love these experimentations. They explain nothing, but I feel like I'm learning something. Are we going to linear? No, we're not. But what if we do an inverse in linear? Well, that's also still not it. No idea. Some kind of math is going on that I am not comprehending. Okay, so for ASUS versus RCM, let's do our split. So this is RCM, this is ASUS. You can see, I think it's ASUS on the left. Yeah, ASUS on the left, RCM on the right. It's a little less contrasty, a little less punchy. Like they're very similar in terms of the color conversions whenever you're using this pipeline that I have set up. But ASUS is a bit punchier and it has a little bit higher peak on the nits. Preference. It's entirely down to preference. Some people say ASUS has more of a look built in. Some people say RCM is more, quote, true to life. Just preferences. I personally dig ASUS. I like it. But I understand RCM because it does feel more neutral. Yeah, there you go. So that's a few ways of dealing with film. Oh, yeah, the elephant in the room. Print emulation. I completely forgot that there are people who would care about that. It's a thing I normally don't mess with much, but you got it. Let's get print emulation up and running. So, same kind of setup. What we'll do is we'll use offset mainly, and we'll go here and we'll do LUT, film looks. I'm using 2383, the built-in 2383 in Resolve, which is like the most commonly requested print emulation I've run across. Probably because for a lot of people it's like the only Kodak stock emulation they have because it comes built into Resolve 2383. This only works because the log for these particular scans is close enough to Cineon. It's not exactly Cineon, but it's close enough that you can like spitball it. You can make it more close to Cineon, like more accurate. I'll walk you through that in 1 second. But for now, I just want to show you the spitball way of doing it. Obviously, you lose a lot of control because if you want to work photochemically, like, you know, this were, say, a hazeltine or something like that, all you can really do is change density and overall tint. You can't really dig into the footage, although we are not on a hazeltine. So if I wanted to, I could, like an ACES, pull the contrast and match shots better. I could even like go in and do lift gamma gain or come in and isolate stuff with our log controls and get more specific and pick specific areas of value. I could use the HDR tools, which I rarely touch because I'm difficult at dealing with change when it comes to the new tools. I'm aware of them. I have used them before, but I don't like to use them because they're a very different workflow than what I learned and how I'm used to working. And to be honest with you, I feel like I can get, you know, roughly equivalent in most things without them. So this is ballparked with the print scan. Since we're doing prints, let's not do noise reduction. Let's let it all hang out, you know. That's about like, you know, projected print roughly if we were to do like a rough answer print. Is it entirely accurate? No. Is it roughly accurate? Roughly. I also just realized I could simplify my node tree and do single nodes by putting our print on the post clip here. And then to make this more accurate, we'll go through these two nodes here. So we will do our, our CIntel print to linear. And then we'll go back to VFX.io. And we will do linear to Cineon, which is Cineon log, which is there. Actually, let's use the color space transform for this. We will do linear and then Cineon film log. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. And now, because the contrast is a bit different, we can come in and play with this. Have a little bit more dynamic range, a little bit more of a neutral, natural image. So we can rough that in using offset / print lights. And this is probably close, especially with the noise floor becoming sort of like a fog layer. This is probably closer to how the printing process would turn out. What I'm curious about, though, because like technically you're supposed to do offset within your within your, like you're supposed to work within the Cineon transform. What happens if we work under all of our transforms? Do we get, we get a little bit more dynamic range on the bottom. I mean, obviously the math is, where are my notes? There. Obviously the math is a little bit different, but we do gain a little bit more on the bottom end. But we also sort of like fog up on a properly exposed. We sort of fog that up because pushing and pulling becomes a little bit different in terms of the math. So when we pull, we're not getting as much density pushed into the bottom as we are whenever we actually have to pull. I don't know, up to you, the order of operations. I don't think there's a right or wrong way with it. I mean, there's obviously people there who probably say, Billy, there's a right and a wrong way to do this, and you're doing it wrong. But I don't care. I think there's no rules. So this is, through these with that. Let's just reset and actually do it the other way. So let's cut these off, and then we'll do our conversions post. So everything goes in post. The whole thing is like a post pipeline. And then we take here, and we are working underneath all of our conversions, every single one of them. I probably want to do log space because I have a feeling, since I'm not working Cineon and the densities are a bit different, I'm not going to get the chunkiness I want in the low end on some of these, where I can punch it. So let's use the log, punch it at the bottom. Let's open that up a little bit more, but still keep the punch. See, it's foggy on the bottom. I'm not a fan of that. It keeps the values cleaner, but I'm not a fan of it. I mean, alternatively, we could work linear, like true linear, and just keep it like this, and then our gain becomes our exposure tool, and it works kind of like exposure on a digital camera would. The math becomes more similar, and then offset kind of becomes like a lift. You get wacky math. So we can that, and then like that. That. That's actually really fast and really convenient to do it that way. Holy crap. And I kind of dig the result. And then you can also print out to, other stocks. We could be like, let's do Fuji. Fuji has that like nice green punch to the bottom that I like, but a lot of people hate. It's actually much less than at 55. I like Fuji at 55, and I like Kodak at 65. It's weird. Because Kodak at 55 to me is just like too ruddy looking. And I mean, we could, trim for it and pull back the white balance on the actual clips, but it's still just, it feels too brown and desaturated. Where like having the 55 white balance or the 65 white balance, it I don't know, it lets saturation punch through a little bit better, I think. Where is PFE print film emulation? Let's try the 2393, which is from Juan Melara, his custom 2393. And then he has a custom 2383 that he made himself. And we have which one is the one that's built in? 3513. 3510, which is also from Juan Melara. And then we have the 3513, which should be identical to this 35. Yep, that 3513. And then we can do a trim for it to get rid of the green because everybody hates the green but me. So what we'll do is we'll do it with gain. And it'll actually push a little bit more pink into the highlights and make it feel more more sunsetty. And I could get rid of the green a different way. Like I could do, since offset is now kind of our gamma, I can do offset to get rid of the green, but I think that's breaking, since we're doing like print emulation, that breaks the linearity of the image, and it breaks our photochemical processing chain, unless we're like specifically going for different processing types, like, say, bleach bypass. Like that'd be kind of like this bleach bypass. Though bleach bypass would push a little green in my experience. So let's push a little bit of green, and then let's warm it slightly too. So this would be like a bleach bypass, or like a cross process. Which you can get funky results in cross process. I like to use split toning for cross processing. So let's select all these. We'll do default anchors. So yeah, cross-processing usually has like very funky split tones to it that break linearity completely. You could also do it with lift, gamma, and gain. Like we could go in and do, let's push kind of pinkish in our gain, and then we'll pull down in our lift and go kind of like the opposite. So that would be like a cross-process, It's very unpredictable though. So like there's no one cross-processing look. Sometimes it'll be like, because it just depends on the chemistry used, the life of the chemistry, the health of the actual negatives in their chemistry, whether you do cross-processing in the print, cross-processing in the negative, whether it's like ECN process, whether you're doing some other kind of process. So like it just depends. But essentially cross-processing would be like just roughly in most cases pushing in one direction and then the opposite direction on your gain and your lift at the same time. I've seen like green cross processing too, where it's like really green. Hang on, that would be like like that almost. Or maybe even the opposite. Like maybe even like, Yeah, that actually feels more like what I've seen with it. It would be like that. Yeah. Yeah. No rules. You want to make the Matrix? If you want to make the Matrix, make the goddamn Matrix. Just trying to remember how they did it. I think it may just be. I think it may just be like a gain push with like a low end cleanup. Anyway, what's interesting about The Matrix is the original theatrical run of it that I remember did not have the green tint to it from the first movie. It was actually very neutral, natural looking, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. Just due to saturation control, I do wanna play with the footage for a little bit more. But I want to do the whole Matrix thing, so I think saturation control in ACES would probably work best as like trying to get a Matrix style look. Let's do it. Let's freaking do it. Oh yeah, saturation control allows you to really lean into it and do it. Yeah. The cinematography of the Matrix, like the only way to get away with it is to just never show the sky unless it's like really just blown out. And due to the TK of the era of the first film, I don't think they would have actually done like anything with ACES or anything like that because it's too old. They probably would have done the initial method of like, you know, pick your white point, your black point, set your gamma, and then I would have tinted it like that. But the machines that they used probably had target points for everything anyway. So I think a closer way of doing it would be to start here, get our color space transform, do Cineon film log, and then just cut off the roll off completely so that we have like a really high clipped top end that we have to control ourselves or not, you know. And then it would be like, all right, let's punch it, get that like that, like that. Let's kind of bring it like that. Let's get our contrast really going. Oh shit, we're losing the top end. All right, let's go here. we'll do that desat curve. So I'll do like 0.5. Actually, let's bring it all the way down like that. Do the same thing to the color black. Let's bring that all the way down. I'll go like this. Like that. It's too harsh. Should soften it. So I think 0.5 is what I need. 0.5, yeah. 0.5, 0.5, and then we go here, right after it, and a little hard clip. The clipper, bring our white point down pretty aggressively, just because we don't want to be like not broadcast safe. Because being broadcast safe was a big deal back then for all this. Instead of soft, we'll use a clipper, and we'll just clip it top and bottom. First, I need to bring the bottom down a little bit more. And then they probably would go in with like a power window or something, assuming that they could, and just or like a gradient mask, graduated mask, and then try to control this. I'm assuming. I never worked with the old like TK styles. I just know that they didn't quite control highlights the way that modern modern digital color correction would, and so you ended up with just like a lot of blown out and clipped stuff on it. I mean, even to some of the color correction today, like the hard clipping is still built into like Mystica and Assimilate Scratch. Some of the workflows in Baselight, you still have like that hard clip. I don't know, I've always wondered how old school color correction worked and why decisions were made that were made. Especially like music videos. Like a lot of music videos, you never see the sky because it's always just like gone like this. You know, in some cases I even let's cut the S curve off on here. Master settings, general options, S curve for contrast off. Like I've even seen music videos before where they look like the image is just done like this. Where they literally just like trim with a linear contrast, no roll to it, nothing. You know, and then like maybe some saturation and maybe an offset. Or maybe they would use like lift, gamma, and gain post this, so then he would come over and like do some adjustments, and then maybe you don't care about the highlights or the shadows being clips. You're just like, whatever, this is fine. I don't know. I literally don't know the workflow for that, and I'd love to find out. I would love to learn how like stuff in the 80s and 90s and 2000s were done, especially like late 90s, early 2000s, because that's the material I'm most familiar with. Like, how did they make these decisions? What was the process like? Because to be honest with you, like this is getting a closer result than I thought it would. Than like doing the CST, to how like this feels like the intro to In Flames. I forget the name of the song. The one where it's like "King in My Own Mind." Like this is kind of what that looks like. Where it's like blown out here, but it's clearly shot on film, and it's got like crushed shadows and everything. Judge me now. You still afraid to let it show? Bow down, a king in my own mind. Everything's in place, so much better from today. A king in my own mind. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. They probably would have to legalize it though, because it was like the early 2000s. So maybe just hard clip the shit out of it to like there. And hard clip the shit out of it to like there. And so it's like that. And then once again, maybe some kind of desat to it. So it'd be like, just to be completely safe. Let's save our asses. Judge me now. You're still afraid to let it go. Bow down. Bow down. So yeah, like I mean, this is definitely not the recommended way to work today, but it definitely feels like 2002. So, there's something to be said for it. If you want to make something feel older than it is, I think this might be the way to go. Or at least from that era. This definitely feels like a 2002, 2003 music video. Holy shit. Man. I think the coup de grace though would be let's go to let's make it just regular HD 1080p. Let's come up here. We'll reset for all of these our zoom, and we'll do like the zoom. Is it reference resizing I want? No, reference resizing. It's output sizing. Yeah, output sizing. They'd hard mat it because they're music videos, so they're cheap. They don't have the money for anamorphics. Can't believe I'm doing this. This is so not how you do this, but that's fine. do like 3. Do I even need to do noise reduction though? Because like, well, it wouldn't even be, it would be widescreen NTSC. So it'd be like this. Let's just do 1080 because it looks too trashy. Otherwise, it's too bad. Too low quality, too horrifying. But yeah, this feels like a 2000s music video in a way that I was not expecting it to. So I'm assuming maybe they just had like target densities and then controlled the offset. I don't know. No idea, but I surprised myself at like how much this feels like a 2002, 2003 music video on this. Like, that's actually really silly. It's just oh man, that's crazy. The real question is, though, can we salvage it and make it modern style legalized? All right, hang on. Highlight soft. Ooh. Oh, we can. Hang on. Heck yeah. You totally can. That's great. Awesome. Okay. This has been fun.